Hello everybody and welcome to session 7 of the Unity Study Jam. In this session, we'll be looking at what user interface, also known as UI, is. I hope you're excited for this session since this is going to basically help you complete your game, or this is the last piece of the puzzle, and this is the session about UI or user interface. Also, this is probably the last session of the building series. We might have one or two videos after this which will not be about actually building the game, rather just about how to generate your exe and those kind of stuff. But in terms of development and building the game, this is probably the last one in the series. So kudos to you for coming till the end. So just as a small recap, we have seen initially what Unity is, what Unity editor is, what are the screens we have, and then we moved on to learning about what assets we have in Unity, or how you can import those assets like from Mixamo, Sketchfab and Asset Store. Further down that, we looked about animations, how to work with animations, how to bring your characters to life with animation. Then we saw what terrains are and how to edit terrains and work with terrains to add like different features. After that, we basically had lighting and camera and all of that, which was for getting an understanding of how to build the game with the right aesthetics and look. And in between that, we had looked at what C# scripting was, or at least the basics of it, where we had covered like some basic inbuilt functions, how to create a script and what like the purpose of scripting even is. After all of that, we moved on to intermediate C# scripting, where we changed things a little bit and did it in the reverse sense. Where we actually had the built game already and understood how the code works from that, since it's easier to understand functionality through the help of an example. And now we are here at UI, our last stop, and the portion to understand about UI is actually like very very little, or rather if you grasp the concept of UI, it's like completely a creative thing. So what is UI basically, and why do we need that? That's the first question. So UI stands for user interface, and that kind of acts like the bridge between your user and your actual game. So if you want a person to interact with your game with the help of buttons, texts and all of that, you need UI. That enables a smoother flow of your game. So even over here, for an example, what we'll actually do is have buttons, text, background images to give the feel and the look of the game, and then also add functionality to it to make like seamless integration through the game. Right, so now that we know what UI is, let's take an example to understand what the UI is. So here, as you can see, this is like a separate scene that I've created, which is basically called main screen. I have game as a separate window or separate scene, and main and end also as separate scenes. So what the main scene does is it gives like the intro to the game, and when I click on a button, it opens the actual game. When I hit on something or I crash, and it basically leads me to the end screen. So what we have here is fairly simple. Main and direction light are like two things that are there by default. So these are the three new things that we have: canvas, event system and new screen script. So again, this script is something we wrote and attached it over here. This is actually an empty game object, and just to make sure I have a script, I just had to add it over here. It has no other functionality. It's an empty name game object with a name new screen script. That's it. So the main point of function over here, or main point of notice, is basically the canvas and event system. So canvas is very similar to what a canvas does in real life. For example, when you have a canvas, that's the area within which you paint. Similarly, the area which is actually captured in your game is the canvas. So as you can see, there's this white color line over here, and that represents your canvas and the one that you can actually see in your game. So You have a lot of ways to see it, and then you can see it in a simulator as well. But since our game's goal is to actually run in a desktop, we are not testing it for the phone, at least for now. But then that's just an option. If you're building it for phones, you might want to test it over here. And then we have the game mode. So what we'll be doing here is adding a canvas, and then this event system is something that gets added by default. So just to show you how it works, I'll just create quickly an empty scene. Go there, and then so add the canvas, or rather the UI elements. So for that, right click on hierarchy, go to UI, and then just click on any one of these options. Like initially you might probably want to add like an image or something. Let's just do that. As you can see, automatically the canvas along with the image gets added, and then event system comes by default. So only matter of concern over here is how to work with image, text and button, at least for the sake of our game. There's also other options that you can add in like UI. For example, you have the slider, the scroll bar, scroll view, you have input boxes, so many more options. This is just one of those. And another thing, right now if you look at this in your game window, you can only see a box. As you might have guessed, this is our frame of reference, and so whenever the camera is seeing or capturing something, it's the entire box. So whatever falls within the entire box, and since the size of this is literally just a small square, that's how we are seeing it. The fix for this is obviously scaling it. You can scale it in all directions you want, and then obviously it will change. I've kept it a little misaligned just to show you the difference. Then the next thing is understanding why image. So over here, usually when you see games, they have very fancy backgrounds, like for example Temple Run and all that. When you look at their settings, they have a lot of fancy backgrounds. So you could actually create your own background and add an image over here. So that is why you have something called the source image. If you have an image already, you can just put that over here. These are just examples, like these are a part of the game or the Unity already, so just small examples. And then you can also control the color. Let's just keep it at none, and then change the color as well for having a basic view of it. So these are like one of the main features or main aspects of your UI, which is understanding the image. The image is more like versatile in that aspect. You can also add things like text and buttons. So for text you have two options, Text Mesh Pro, and then you have like the legacy text. Same way for buttons also. So Text Mesh Pro is a little more recent version, and you can do a lot more with Text Mesh Pro visually. Legacy was basically the ones that were there originally, or the OG Unity UI elements. But for simplicity's sake, let's just look at button. Now it works just as well as TMP does. So now a button is a very interesting feature. Let me just add a button and a text also, just so that you can see what it is. Let's go to legacy text. So as you can see, this is the text over here, this is the button over here, and they all got added inside my canvas, which obviously you need to right click on that and then click on UI. So why is the button interesting? Because as you can see, it has an arrow here, which means it contains something else, and that is the text. So you can't control the text of your button from the panel here straight up. You can change the background for it, or you can even change the color of your button from here. But then the text is basically another text field inside of it. So if I want to modify text, I'll have to basically go over here, then go to the inspector window, and then I'll put start or something. So that's how it changes. So it's important to understand whatever you again, as you know, when you add something in a hierarchy like this, if this contains text, it means when you move button, the text also moves with it. That's very important to understand this parent-child concept. So these are the three elements, and obviously text is fairly simple. Text has a few properties, at least the basic properties. Obviously what text you want to display, which font you want to choose, and then what style you want, which is bold, italic and all of that, what font size you want, how much space you want between lines, and whether you want it to be wrapped around or not, center aligned, right aligned, left aligned, those kind of options, and whether you want it to wrap or overflow. These are all the ideas or concepts you have related to text, and these are very similar to how we work with text in like common editors, like Docs or Word. So that is like just the overview of how this works. Let's head back to our game and actually look at decode that maybe now. So let's save this and go over here. Right, so this is a very straightforward UI. It doesn't have too much complexity, and the reason we did it this way is because we are almost at the end now, or rather actually at the end. So the challenge, or the final challenge for this study jam, would be for you to design your own UI and like go crazy with it, like as creative as you want. It doesn't have to be like plain just text and color. You can like explore and do whatever you want with UI. And the reason why this is like a fairly open challenge is because it's not as difficult as the concepts we have covered before. So with that in mind, it's just a small task for you to try out, making a very creative UI. So we'll just look into the canvas now. Clearly the image is for the background, then we have TMP, and then we have the button. So here I've used the Text Mesh Pro Text, and I've not used a normal one. Again, it's up to you to choose. And then here you have settings for your font asset, and then font style, the same settings mostly. So you can change that here. And then obviously the button, so this is a legacy button, and then you have the text inside. So very straightforward button, there's not too much to it, and then the text inside of it. And again, you can adjust the text over here. The purpose of this is when I click on it, it should actually start the game that we saw in the previous session. And how do I do that? Now that is the main question we have. So clearly the button has to have some functionality. So when you scroll down in your inspector window, you might be noticing that there is basically this functionality over here called on click, which is a part of the button by default. So when I come here also and I scroll down, there's something called on click here. So that's the game window. Anyways, let's go to the main screen and go to canvas button. Yep, so here you can see that I've added something over here that is basically describing what functionality I want the button to do. So how you would do that is click on the plus symbol, and then you get these options here. So I need to first choose what I have to attach here. Usually you can add an object or a script over here. In our case, we wanted to perform a functionality, and hence we'll be adding a script while that's loading. And then there was also another option in the side, which was basically what function you actually wanted to perform, and what is the object from where it's getting the function. So the script for that is over here. So the reason why we had to add a game object and then add the script to that particular game object, so how I did that was add component, and then you can choose which script you want to add. So here I want to add the menu switch script, and that is what we have added over here. And it actually doesn't have any work over here, it's just an empty game object. So go create empty, add component, and put this over there, and then you add it to the button over here. So you choose menu switch, or okay, over here it's called the new screen. Okay, one second, choose on the button, go over here. Over there you need to basically choose new screen script, because you need to choose a game object there. Okay, so the reason why we can't do that is because as you can see here, this has already been added as a functionality. So again, it's not possible to do it twice. Just to demonstrate that, I did this. So I also tried adding a script over here directly, but then I don't get the option I want. So let's just see what it is about, what the hype is about at least. I'll click on like new screen script, and then as I can see, the menu switch is over here. The script for that is over here. and this is what we are going to be using. As you can see, there are like some more things that have been added to the header file. One is Unity Engine.ui, then TextMesh Pro. That was because we used both of that. And scene management is something you need to add when you want to switch between scenes. And here we are switching from the main screen to the game screen. So we need these options. So in this case, we don't need UI and TextMesh Pro, but maybe in the next UI which I'll be showing you, you might need it. So it's fairly straightforward. When the start game function is called, I need it to load the next scene. That's all that the code even does. So what I will do is I'll go to the button, I'll create an object over here, and then whatever function it has, in this case, let me just remove this one. So here it had like the menu switch. So this is the name of the script that we have, and inside that we have the start game. So that is the one that's been added over here. And then obviously the game object from where we get the function. So that is how you add code for your button. This is just one example of UI. If you had seen the actual game of how it works, let me just go to that scene actually. So the scene is basically game screen. Over there we had like one or two UI things. As you can see, there's a canvas here and an event system here. Let me go to that. So I have not used an image over here because I want like a clean background. So I just want this to overlap on top of my game, where it tells me like this is your score or this is the amount of cheese you've collected. So we could just drag this a bit if you want. You can do all of that and adjust it. That's up to you. Anyways, so this is what I want to use for displaying my scroll or displaying my score, and that's why I have image TextMesh Pro, both TextMesh Pros. One is for the title, one is for the amount of coins. And as I said, I didn't use an image for the background and I wanted it empty. I just used an image just for the small segment. Let's just see what all scripts are involved in making this 0 actually work. So we did glance upon this a bit in the last session, but let's just understand the code once more. So again, head back to scripts, and here we have count cheese. So this is the one that mainly deals with displaying all your text values. So what we'll have here is a class called count cheese, and we have one integer that keeps track of the value of how much cheese you have collected so far. And then obviously the cheese text is basically the TextMesh Pro text, which actually keeps updating the value. And every time the update function is called, I'll just convert this particular value, this integer, into a string, and I'll display it. That's entirely how this code works. But how do I know the value of cheese count? Like, how do I update it though? So I get the value and I can display it, but then how is the value updated? That is why you have the collect cheese. So what it does is it basically refers to this particular class. So as you can see, count cheese is the name of that class, and then the variable inside that is called cheese count. That is being updated over here. So how this works is, anytime the cheese collider is invoked, or when it's triggered, the value gets increased by 1, and that game object disappears, obviously signifying that you have collected that particular object. So this value keeps getting increased in this script, and then since the same value is being referenced over here, it keeps getting updated, and in every single frame it checks if the value is changing, or whatever value is there in that particular variable, it's just displayed. That is the entirety of how this code works. There's nothing more to it than this. So the last one is again menu switch. This was basically for loading, this was the menu switch for loading from your main screen to your game scene. And then once you're done with this, you have the obstacle.cs. So what we'll do here is, once you hit on a particular obstacle, I will set the running to false, and then I'll load the end screen. So, and the end screen is also made up of some UI elements. So if you want to quickly look at the end screen, let's go there, scenes, and then end screen, and that's it. That is basically the entire journey of your game. Again, the scripts have been shared in like the drive link in the last session itself, so go do check that out. Meanwhile, we'll try posting this game completely and like sending the link to you. For example, I don't mean like the actual final game, but rather the project, like all the assets that are based or related to this game, including the scripts and everything that we have used, so that you can get it in your Unity and understand how the game works as well. Take some time and understand that. We'll update details about that very soon, but for now, this is all about UI. So as a reminder, the challenge for this session and the last challenge for you is basically to design the UI that has like good looks, aesthetics, and also functionalities. So get as creative as you want, and we are hoping to see some interesting responses. As always, we are at the end of the session now, and the next step from here is obviously looking at the time lapse video. So I'll quickly go to that, and then that will be the end.